Welcome to Holding Down the Fort by U.S. VetWealth. I'm your host, Jen Amos, a Gold Star daughter, veteran spouse, and upcoming author. This season is dedicated to our seasoned spouses preparing for military transition. Together, we'll explore what happens when we stop following orders and start choosing what comes next. Because you too are retiring. And now it's your turn. Let's get started. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. What I'm about to share with you is a video clip that we have saved for quite some time now, since our 200th episode of Holding Down the Fort had been released. So if you have been following the show at this point, you'll know that I've been talking a lot about the Survivor Benefit Plan and how I am writing a book specifically for military spouses to make a confident and informed decision about the Survivor Benefit Plan. Now, if you are a retiree listening to this, you can check out my husband's book, Don't Forget Your War Chest. That book has various versions depending on your rank. So if you're E8, O5, or O6, there's a book tailored to you. And all of those books, the first couple of chapters, which are now available, by the way, so big announcement, of my book, The Military Spouse Benefit Plan, is available along with my husband's books, Don't Forget Your War Chest, available today simply by subscribing to InsideTheFort.com. Upon subscribing, you'll get instructions on how to download those free ebooks. And if you already have been subscribed, you will get instructions on how to get access to the new chapters for the Military Spouse Benefit Plan. So everyone that has gotten a copy of that will get emailed directly with those upcoming chapters. But anyway, part of coming back to Holding Down the Fort is to just talk about what my mission is in this season of the show and really this stage of my life in regards to the work I do at U.S. VetWealth. And so, as I said, going back to episode 200, we were honored with Stephanie Brown's presence. Stephanie Brown is the founder and CEO and a dear friend of my husband and myself for a long time now. A fun fact, my husband was part of one of the first cohorts for the Rosie Network's Service2CEO. It was actually named differently at the time. And so, it's been quite a long time to have the kind of relationship we have with the Rosie Network and with Stephanie Brown. And of course, in the previous seasons, we had interviewed graduates from the Service2CEO Program. So thank you again, Stephanie, for being a guest. And after the official recording, we held another recording that I have only made available on our private podcast, Inside the Fort, available at InsideTheFort.com. And so we held another interview to listen to her testimonial and her experience with the Survivor Benefit Plan. And so Stephanie will explain this way better than me about the importance of making a confident and informed decision about the SBP. It's one thing for me to say it, but it's another thing for someone as respected as Stephanie Brown. So I hope that for the next couple of minutes here, you'll take a listen to what Stephanie Brown has to say about her personal experience with the Survivor Benefit Plan. In addition to that, if you are listening to this episode and Stephanie's testimonial resonates with you in any way, and maybe you too feel compelled to sharing how you made a confident and informed decision about the Survivor Benefit Plan, please reach out to me. Again, visit InsideTheFort.com. Subscribe there. My contact information is on there. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And I would love to consider you as a guest on the show to hear your story, because the more people we can have talking about this lifelong decision that can be easily overlooked or considered as something else to check off the list of military retirement, if we can have more people just sharing their experience and their wisdom about the Survivor Benefit Plan, the better. So Without further ado, I hope you gain a ton of insight from Stephanie Brown's testimonial, and I will chat with you all in the next episode. Enjoy.
Well, my late husband served over 30 years active duty in the Navy, and he was an officer, retired as a Rear Admiral. I raised the kids. I started an organization. I supported his career, et cetera, et cetera. And to be honest, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to our finances. My husband take care of that for the most part. So when Tom was facing retirement and he went to Capstone, he did it for, I think it was 2 or 3 days in a row. And he would come back and I'd say, okay, what do I need to know? And he said, Stephanie, I can't even remember anything during Capstone, because it was like drinking from a fire hose. We're talking about our finances. Well, what will you make as, retirement pay? How much? He was 100% permanently disabled. How much of that is going to be disability? How much are we going to pay in taxes? All those kinds of questions, life insurance, setting money aside for our kids to go to college. All of those were questions that we were facing. Where are we going to get medical care, dental care, da-da-da-da-da. And it just was overwhelming. It was overwhelming. And neither one of us were, Tom invested our money, but neither one of us were financial planners. Neither one of us, I certainly didn't know the difference between buying stock and bonds, investing in bonds. I had no clue. So, one of the things that, Tom said, well, the military offers this survivor benefit plan, SBP, and they'll take it out of the paycheck and, so on and so forth. And this is what you'll get. And because we were overwhelmed and we didn't know what we were doing and we really didn't have the time, we were trying to deal with so many other things, moving home, the house, the kids, we got sucked into that. Oh, it's easy. It's the easy decision. Not knowing that once you pass a certain time frame, you can't cancel. You can't cancel. First of all, you're in it. That's it. And we were paying over $600 a month for SBP, over $600 a month for SBP. And then you let the time lapse, which goes just like that, and you don't cancel it, right? Or you change your mind, you find something better. You're stuck. You're stuck paying that money. And that, for us, again, over $600 a month. So, and then later, when I had an opportunity and sat down with Scott and, we're talking about, well, what do you have and what do you need? And asking all the smart questions and really making us sit down and sort of figure it out, I realized that this was crazy. This was crazy. First of all, I could have bought any kind of life insurance policy for a fraction of that price and not be dealing 3 years later, after Tom passes away, with trying to get the survivor benefit money, trying to get the SBP money. It has been, for me personally, it's just been kind of a nightmare. I realize there are others that don't have that experience. I hope you don't. But I would tell you that if you have a chance to sit down with someone who is really familiar, they're not anti-SBP, but know the difference. Know what SBP is. If you pay for SBP, which, like I said, you can choose it when you retire. And then, if you don't watch the clock, and you don't cancel before a certain period of time, you're stuck. You can't get out of it. So go into it with eyes open. And if you can sit with someone like Scott, like Jen, who can go, this is the benefit of SBP. This is how old you are. This is your health. This is your, maybe your life expectancy. And, if your service member passes, God forbid, before you do, then this is how much you can expect to receive for the money that you've put into it. We put in over $50,000 into our SBP when Tom passed away. Over $50,000. So I think, God, what could I have done with that $50,000 that would have put me in a much better financial position now as a single mom than, where I am right now with SBP. So my advice is just get educated. Go to somebody that you trust. I trust Scott and Jen. That's me. I would go, here's my checkbook. Here's every penny I have. Do the right thing. And I know that they would do the right thing. So If you're lucky enough to have somebody like that in your life, then you're pretty darn lucky. But just get educated. Find out what the alternatives are. Just because the DoD is offering it does not mean it's the best solution for you. I don't know how more simply I can put it. And in my case, and since what happened to me, I started doing research and reading. My case is far more common than one might think. I've read some absolute horror stories. So just saying, that 50,000, what I could have done with that, and a myriad of other ways to put that money aside and make that money work for me, that would have put me in a better financial situation than I am now, because we don't get Tom's retirement pay. We're without that. Tom's income, additional income and earning, we're without that. So now I have, a kid in college and one that's out on his own, but not quite at that point where he can totally support himself. And I'm at, in my 60s, literally at this point, living pretty close to paycheck. And that just does not, I don't think Tom would have been very happy that were the case. So get the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and find out what your alternatives are. And Scott, I think that for me, it was the fine print. And in fact, it's not even fine print that's actually put in print. If you don't know what you don't know about SBP, that, may or may not even be, I don't even remember, since this happened, going back and reading all the, old forms and having to go through Tom's records and stuff like that it was ever made clear. And you as a spouse, not all of us, but some of us, I certainly did, I expected and relied on Tom to do the DoD paperwork. I had, first of all, no one at the DoD after we signed up for SBP ever reached out to me and said, hey, did you know that if you don't do X within a certain period of time and the deadline passes, you're kind of screwed. Nobody ever reached out to me while I was a spouse or before Tom passed. Nobody reached out. And yet I come to find out that the reason they can say, hey, sorry, it's not our fault. You didn't do this. Well, he's gone. He's passed away. Well, you could have done it. Really? I, as the spouse, could have done it? What are you talking about? I mean, nobody told me that. So I'm telling you, it just felt like it was set up in a way that made it too easy for things to go wrong and for them to say, to make it difficult. So it's not written, in my humble opinion, it's not written in a way that has our six. Like, hey, your husband served 30 years. He is 100% permanently disabled. We spent 2 years in and out of the hospital. But don't you worry, we got your six if something happens. We got you covered. No, it was, oh, you goofed up. Even though they took the money out of his retirement pay, you can bet they did that. It was very disappointing. And I think that, maybe it's great for some people, but honestly, like I said, I could have taken that over $50,000 and put it somewhere else that would have set us up financially a lot better than SBP. It almost felt like there were all these little caveats that are buried in there that while you may be dealing with a family tragedy or, whatever, an illness or something like that, but they put this little loophole and with a deadline. And if you don't, that is not having a service member or a military family's back. I mean, it just isn't in my mind. So I'm sure I'll get the direct messages, but bring them on. All I'm saying is educate yourself and find out what the alternatives, the other options are. I wish that we had made the time to do that. And, things would be very, very different for our family right now. We are still 3 years later fighting it, but educate yourself. And, if the knowledge is free and you find somebody that you can trust, who's not going to paint it, one way or the other, who's just going to go, here are the facts, given your situation. These are the things to consider. Absolutely. Please do it. Please do it.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you're seeking a second opinion on the Survivor Benefit Plan, subscribe to our podcast now at InsideTheFort.com. That's InsideTheFort.com. Once you subscribe, you will receive a free download to the introduction of my book, The Military Spouse Benefit Plan. Why? Because you've spent years holding it down for your family, and we are dedicated to helping you own what's next. See you on the inside at InsideTheFort.com, or we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye for now.